Welcome to the Friday Matinee here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I am T.
I'm George.
Happy Friday, George.
Why, thank you.
We're getting a little rain. The weather's changing. It's a very interesting bit of springtime weather, but yay for a bit of drizzle on Friday all through the weekend.
And
but,
you have you're off being a movie star yesterday. Was that the deal, or?
Yeah, I was doing a television commercial out in the glorious city of Orange.
Did you see my introduction? Did you see I posted?
I did, and I just haven't had a chance to be on the computer to say that I liked what you did. George.
So here we are. It's Friday.
It is Friday, and, in addition to all of the wonderful arts we bring in and out of the studio on the Friday Matinee, we traditionally have a little theater, we had a little film, we had a little television, and we bring various artists in.
A little song, a little seltzer down your pants.
Exactly. And so today, we have a gentleman by the name of John Kay in the studio. He's going to sing live for us, going to tell us a little bit about his incredible musical history, his background, and we're very excited to welcome to the show, John Kay.
Thanks.
All right, so John, you came to us are you a Santa Clarita resident? You love our town? How did you come to this area?
I'm a traveling musician. I came out to the Santa Clarita Blues Society functions a couple of times at Vincenzo's Pizza and the American Legion. And this Sunday, I believe, this Sunday is the Santa Clarita Blues Society, board meeting, whatever. I'm going to come out there with my friends from the Soul Patch LTD band that I have. Soul Patch LTD was a band that was a creation in 2005 for playing blues out in Las Vegas. And we had one of the premier blues bands out there for quite a while. And I am right now in the midst of firing that band up again.
Now, you mentioned Las Vegas. Las Vegas has a very soft spot in your heart, partly because your parents, that's a connection you had there. Tell me a little bit, because I'm always interested, working musicians, traveling musicians, recording musicians. I always like to know where the seed was planted. So before you were this person and this was your life, walk me back to how music became a thing for you.
It's about 4 generations old in my family. Everybody's been trying to avoid real work in my family. My great aunt was the last Queen of Hawaii, Queen Liliuokalani. She was one of the prolific songwriters of Hawaiian music. My grandfather was Johnny Ukulele, and he introduced the ukulele in the United States in 1915. He came out with the Duke Kahanamoku swim team. And he actually competed in the 30s Olympics against Johnny Weissmuller. I don't know if you know that name.
Oh, my gosh, Tarzan.
Of course.
And you know who Buster Crabbe is?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Flash Gordon. Yeah.
and Buck Rogers.
Yes.
Well, he didn't race against them, but he raced against the other two on the swim team for the Detroit swim athletics team. And he did well in the preliminaries, but then he lost out to the actual run or whatever it was, the contest to be in the Olympics, and he decided to start the Royal Hawaiian School of Music.
Okay, so from swimming to music, it's sort of the same.
He was a
sink or
musician,
swim.
and then he went to swimming. It's if you're born in Hawaii, that's what you do: is you surf and
something
you learn
with
how
the water,
to swim.
anything with the water, and music. Okay, and then moving on.
And then moving on, my aunt and my father, and they picked up a third member out in Baltimore, and they started a unit called the Mary Kaihui Trio, but it was Johnny Ukulele and the Hawaiian music magicians or whatever, musicians, and they decided that they would break away and do their own thing, and so their band was called the Mary Kaihui Trio, which is my family's original name for Hawaiian name. And then what happened is people couldn't pronounce that Kaihui, so they said, well, let's call it Mary Kay, and left it at that. So they became the Mary Kay Trio, and there's some video on YouTube of the Mary Kay Trio back in their heyday. At that time, there was no lounge scene in Las Vegas.
And how old were you at about this juncture?
I wasn't. I was about that little back then. Yeah, they were in Las Vegas back in the 40s.
Okay.
Through the early 50s, and by the time I was born, they were pretty well a mainstay in Las Vegas. The thing is that there was a song and dance man, Ronald Reagan, you might remember that name. He came in at the New Frontier Hotel and actually replaced. He was the one to follow up on the schedule with the Mary Kay Trio. And the owner, Jack Kozlov of the Frontier Hotel, and Eddie Grant, who was the manager, wanted to keep the trio over because they had some time. And they decided what they would do is build a stage behind the bar and put them on that and put a drape around the room. And where the women would wait for their husbands, that's where they would go, is in the lounge. And so they just put live entertainment in there, and that was that kind of like a cross between my aunt deciding it, the owner, the manager, and her manager. And
it was the birth of the lounge act, because prior to that there wasn't any no such animal.
No, and it was actually documented that they are the first ones. And the thing is that when they did this, up until midnight, the midnight show ended at 1 o'clock. They would close down the hotel pretty much. A few gamblers staying on, but
hardcore.
Yeah, real hardcore, trying to get their money back, I guess. But what they would do is clean the hotels and casinos at that time from like 1 o'clock in the morning till 8 a.m. when the breakfast specials and all that started, maybe even earlier than that. But then what happened is when the trio got in, they went from the end of the first of the late show until about 6 or 8 o'clock in the morning. I mean, sometimes they'd, play 5, 6 sets just because they were having so much fun. And
you have to love music to be able to sustain that and to have that joy of it and to do it every night. So the idea that they were, what a great environment for you to have, because a lot of families, it's you go to school and you be an accountant, and maybe if, once you have that, because this music thing isn't going to work out, your family just music was everything, every moment of every hour of every day.
Well, let me straighten you out here. My father and my aunt and my uncle, they were the highest paid group in lounge business. What happened is when they started going the 24 hours around the clock and having the entertainment late at the night, the entourage from the Rat Pack used to come into the hotel, and they blew like $250,000 every night for the first week.
And so, you had some interesting guests that would come over to the house. Johnny Mathis, Joey Bishop, and some guy that came out of Tupelo, Mississippi.
That was his babysitter, which is a great story. We'll get to that.
I call him a babysitter, but
he played with you.
Well, he kind of just watched us do what we do. I had two brothers the three of us grew up together. We were all 3 years apart. I'm the oldest son of Norman Kay, and he and my mother would go off to go shopping at the store for a few hours, and they would ask Elvis to watch us when he came by. And really, he didn't do much, I had a 16-year-old sister that would run off into the bathroom, into the bedroom, and we wouldn't see her all the time he was there.
Because she was, I knew that my parents had a fireman friend who was just so adorable. I would disappear. I couldn't be in the room. Just can't do it. Yes. So now you're the oldest of 3 other siblings, a sister and a couple brothers?
I have older brother and sister, half brother and sister, and then there was a daughter. My father had a daughter, and then myself and my 2 brothers, and then I have 3 other brothers that are half brothers.
We're talking with John Kay, musician who's a lifelong musician. We're going to have an opportunity here to hear some of his music. When was the first time you picked up an instrument, since you were surrounded by it?
We had Elvis's music, we had Frank Sinatra, we had all that stuff back in the day that our folks were actually playing some of the stuff. Our family got the first hit on a song called My Funny Valentine in '59, and listening to that consistently and being in the light booths and watching the shows and everything, the music never moved me. But my aunt and my dad and my uncle went to play Talk of the Town over in London. While they were there, they ran into Brian Epstein and 3 of the 4 Beatles, and they hadn't just hadn't clicked quite yet. It was 63, and they brought back a 45 to us of Please Please Me and Mr. Postman, and my cousin and I got that, and it was like, the light of life went on. It was like, oh my God.
Like somebody plugged you into the light socket.
Yeah, he and I looked at each other, and this is what we're going to do for the rest of our lives. We're going to play rock and roll. And this was a year before they came out to the United States. And so we picked up the instruments. He decided he wanted to be a guitar player like John Lennon. I liked Paul McCartney, so we started working out the stuff, the Beatles tunes that were out, all 2 of them that we had, and then went on from there. And I'll remember, I'll never forget this. My cousin and I, we decided that this was so intense that we were going to cut school. And here we are in Las Vegas, and we're at the big house of my aunt that she owned, and we take this long, huge extension cord, long orange extension cord across the brown desert into this makeshift trailer, right? And we pulled a couple of Chaise lounge chairs from the pool, put it in there, stole some of my uncle's Playboys, and got the phonograph record and played that thing until it fell apart, and smoking cigarettes that my mom left laying around. And my aunt caught us one day, and that was like, oh my God. She instilled the fear of God in us, and we decided that we're never going to do anything else other than music, and that's what we decided to do. And
now, she played guitar, Mary Kay, and was that an influence on you, or is it just the whole scene that you had around there?
The influence was the Beatles. Mary was more of a mentor to myself and my cousin. My father and mother did not want me in the music business at all.
Because they knew what it was, so yeah, it was a little bit different. Who taught you to play, or were you self-taught?
Self-taught.
So the mentor, did she at least like set you straight? Like, don't hold it like that. This is the way you play this chord. Because my favorite T-shirt is of 3 guitar, an image of the 3 guitar chords, and then underneath it says, now go start a band. Once you know 3, the basic 1, 4, 5 progression.
You can become a millionaire.
You can become a millionaire. I've seen Taylor Swift songs with 2 chords. Who needs a 3rd one? So did she at least say to you, this is how you play an A, this is what a D looks like? Did you get any of that, or you just were playing what you heard?
No, we just played what we heard. We learned from what we were playing. Basically, it's one of those things where if you got the passion, you figure it out.
You find a way.
You do find a way. And
yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
that's true. And I want to talk a little bit about how you ended up in California, because it looks like you kind of got started in the music business pretty young, to where you started recording, right? Right.
My cousin and I, we decided, we would play together, and we played together for several years when we first were growing up. And what happened was he got a contract through my aunt to put out a record at 14. White Whale Records was the label. Their big hit band was the Turtles, and at that time the Turtles were huge. So the people from White Whale Records had taken my cousin up to Canada, and they recorded an album of songs that he and I had written. And he came back down. I got to be the bass player for the band and backup vocalist, and we had a pretty good run with that. We made a lot of money, from what I understand. Never saw any of it.
Oh, now one of the old record label stories where...
Yeah, White Whale Records was it was on the wave of the Turtles, Eleanor G, I Think You're Swell, and Imagine Me and You. And the thing is that they took that money and put it into their second album. Do you remember their second album?
What, the Turtles' second album?
Yeah.
Does anybody?
Crickets.
No,
Crickets.
That's what happened. Is it tanked the record label, and last I knew, Sony Records got it, and we. I guess it's a situation where if they don't know where the musician is, they can't send them the money. So there was a.
If I can't see you, you can't see me.
Yeah, and you wouldn't have to pay me if you owed me money. So, yeah, and the thing is that we traveled for a while, and when we finally did figure, well, you know what, we got the songwriters' royalties, even if they gave away our publishing. They sent us a check several years after the album had come out, and the album is now released through Rocket Beat or something like that, Sunday's Records or something, online, and they're still selling it. And I had recently received a check about a month ago from Sony, so those royalties keep on paying, so it's a good thing.
And then you just kept on singing, kept on writing songs, and I know we're going to hear a little bit of some. What do we want to go in and listen to a little something? Do you want to set something up for us?
We could throw something and we can get some others in there. Let me get a few things in place here. Keep talking.
So tell me a little bit about what you're doing now, and how has the songwriting you were doing then to the songwriting you do now? How do you feel? Is it something like when you're an artist and you're doing something? There's a portion of it when you first start that stays with you always. They talk about a songwriter or performer's salad days when you're really hungry and you're really pouring your soul out. Did you find your writing got a little more guarded over the years? Do you find you're still writing similarly to what you did when you were younger? How's it changed or not changed?
You just go through those changes. I mean, influences have a lot to do with what you're playing. My cousin and I split differences when we were in our 20s. He moved off to Spain. He created his own environment over there. He was the Blue Messiah of Spain, and he passed away this past January. There was three months difference between us, and he has jkband.com. He's still out there with the bass player and the drummer are now on their own doing whatever they're doing. But when he passed away, it was kind of like he stuck with the blues feel from the time he was very young. We both grew up in the classic rock era, and we played a lot of classic rock, and then we got turned on to guys like John Mayall and Norton Buffalo and a lot of blues people, Bobby Blue Bland and all that. So he chose to go that route. I was kind of more into, I can't say he wasn't into Cream and he wasn't into Clapton, but that's how he learned how to play guitar, was listening to those guys.
Oh, the greatest of the great of the great. That's good to listen to.
Yeah, and I was like always the bass player, backup singer, and I decided that I like that hard punch type of music, so I went for more the hard rock like Led Zeppelin, Bad Company, and all those other.
The best of the best of the best.
Yeah, they were all great, and they still are, and so we parted ways. He went off to Europe and stayed there until he passed away for over 20 years, 30 years. And I just continued on with the rock scene, played the hotels and casinos in Las Vegas, traveled out of Las Vegas with different bands going all over the place. And we ended up in Los Angeles when we were 14, so it's not like it was a stretch for us to be here. My aunt's band, the Mary Kay Trio, had split up in 66, and so we were out here in 67, 68, 69, and so we were out here, and it was quite.
You came at 14. Else. Did you come with family? Did you have family already here, or
my aunt?
Oh, so you at least had some supervision, or light supervision.
Oh my God, no, we were totally out of control. We were out of control then, and still are.
Light supervision.
Now, what we were sent were kind of like snippets of songs, and one I do have here is just a little snippet of Cold Shot. We mind if we play that one a little bit, or is that all right?
Yeah, I guess. Can you put on? I'll tell you what. What I'd like to lead into was the Wicked Man. Okay. And the only reason why I'm asking that is because this is an album that has been in the mix for many years. Okay. And this is one of the first cuts that we've released out of that album.
Pop that in right after the break. I can get that set up for you.
Okay. Well, then let's play Cold Shot.
Just a little bit, and then we'll
play that out to the
Okay, here we go.
I think there's about a minute of it, right?
Just a little snippet there. Now, is that the Overlords, right?
Yes, it's the Overlords with doing a Stevie Ray Vaughan song.
Now, let me ask you this: did the guitarist on that? Did they have the heavy strings that Stevie Ray Vaughan used?
You know what? I have no idea what they play. That's their instrument. They do what they do, and I tend to have a lot of different people that I work with doing these bands because, these are great players that get sorted out and sent off with other bigger groups and things like that. So, and vice versa, a lot of bands lose their members to us, and
It just kind of goes around, but like it's the Southern California scene, just back and bouncing back and forth.
That was Vegas.
Yeah, although there was, but yeah, out here because you're bouncing. You've got Soul Patch Limited, which has some Santa Clarita members.
Right.
Then you also have John Kay and the Overlords.
Yeah, the Overlords. There was a big dissertation about who the guys are in the Overlords. These guys are monster players. I've got a drummer that works off and on with Ozzy Osbourne. The bass player that I had that has been replaced. The first one was with Eddie Money. The second one was with Motley Crue, and he was the original bass player for Alcatraz back in the '80s, which was a metal band.
I think I've heard of them.
Oh yeah, they were huge, and that's Tim Luce. He's the bass player now for this gig coming up on May 7th that we're doing with the Overlords out in Calabasas, and. In that band, there's Harlan Specter. He was one of the younger guys that played with the Buffalo Springfield on keys. He's played with. He's actually played recently with Redbone. They had a song called "Come and Get Your Love" in the Guardians of the Galaxy, and Pat Vegas. He has a new resurgence in his career. So. I mean, he's like early mid-70s or something.
But you've pretty much spent your whole life as a musician, never really did anything else, right?
Let me tell you about that. My father said, if you're going to be a professional musician, get a day gig. My day gig, I always had to do something that, was like free to leave at any moment. But it also kept me out of trouble to some degree. For 45 years, I was a realtor, broker, realtor, and in my father's office for 20 years or so. And I started in land sales when I was 16.
Wow.
Yeah, and
you probably sold me my piece of property out in California City. I still have that I bought when I was 19.
Is it sinking underwater?
No, it's still there. So,
but that still gives you enough money, but gives you the freedom to do what you want to do.
Well, yeah, you got to pay the bills, and
exactly.
And the music business is so sporadic with regards to getting hired.
And the music business is the business of music. And if you have a little bit of business sense, you're going to be a better musician, be able to play, be able to book things, be able to keep track. I mean, you have to have some of that, because that's the thing that kills a lot of really great artists is they don't know the business of music. So at least you had a little crossover.
Yeah, and the business is really getting the business right now.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, guys are playing for free and having to pay to play. And
pay for play is a thing.
It's been like that since the early 70s, from what I understand.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It is this area.
Our guest is John Kay. John Kay and the Overlords and Soul Patch Limited. We're going to come back with some original songs, more original music from John, and maybe some live songs as well. This is the Friday Matinee on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.